In this episode of The Haul, we take a closer look at Ford's new 2021 F-150, and yes, it still does burnouts. What's up guys, Justin with AmericanTrucks.com, and let me introduce you to the newest member of the AT fleet, our brand new 2021 XLT 5-liter truck in Rapid Red that may or may not still have some smoldering rubber in those rear fenders. By now, if you're watching this video, chances are you've probably seen a few reviews of the 21 here, but if I had to guess, there are probably Ford supplied premium package trucks that really grab your attention through fancy interiors, cool gadgets, and torquey hybrids. That's not this video. Hell no. We got the working man's truck right here with the XLT and that red-blooded American V8, and we're gonna show you what you get for your money with what is now Ford's 14th generation of its most popular vehicle in the world. Now, some of you guys watching this video might be like, man, that's more mid-cycle refresh rather than a complete redesign, and well, that's where you would be wrong, at least according to Ford. Ford claims roughly 97% of this truck is completely new, even if it doesn't appear that way. One thing that hasn't changed, of course, aluminum body still riding on that heavy-duty steel frame. However, aesthetically speaking, everything is different, and I think the biggest area for that sweeping change can be found right up front. As is tradition, Ford likes to really differentiate its roughly 8 different trim levels through unique front ends. The old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, well, that's exactly what Ford is telling you to do. Now, these trim packages remain relatively unchanged from the previous model year. You have your XL, XLT, Lariat, King Ranch, Platinum, and Limited, and set to make its debut here is the new off-roady Tremor package for the F-150 and the highly anticipated 3rd generation Raptor set to make its debut for the 2022 model year. All these trucks with completely different mugs. Now you can even distill that down a little bit further and go through things like Sport versus Chrome package or even STX, but you get the point, you have options. Now Ford's able to accomplish this by using one of 11 unique grille options here for 21, including 3 different headlight options, and these feature a base halogen, a mid-level LED reflector, and a high-end or high-level LED projector, which does feature dynamic bending. Basically, the lights bend around corners at night, which is very cool. Now, both LED headlight options do receive very stylistic daytime running lights, which expand that signature C-clamp shape into the bumper now, and they're done so in a very nice manner, far better, in my humble opinion, than the cheap-looking rope lighting used on the LED 2018 through 2020 headlights. Now, I hate to get hung up on headlights here, guys, but I just have to say that as an F-150 fan and owner, I am thrilled that Ford finally decided to offer a quality headlight option like an LED on an XLT trim truck, which is definitely cause for celebration. But outside of things like headlights and grills, the rest of the front end is of course completely different as well. Bulging power dome hood adds some much needed muscle up front, and that lower air dam on the completely redesigned front bumper now actually deploys 3.5 inches at speeds above 40 miles an hour in an effort to make this thing a little bit more aerodynamic. Does it work? Well, I guess so, because that and other tweaks equate to make this thing roughly 3% more aerodynamic than the outgoing model. From a distance, the side of the truck doesn't look remarkably different. However, that all changes once you start diving a little bit deeper and really picking apart some individual body panels. For instance, up front, the biggest change here, no doubt, is this fender vent, which now carries your trim logo, and it seems to be a love it or hate it addition amongst fellow F-150 fans. One thing that isn't completely obvious at first glance is that the truck has been widened, at least the track width, by 3/4 of an inch. So therefore, some small modifications to your fender have been made, including these new built-in, more pronounced wheel arches. Now you're also looking at one of a baker's dozen's worth of new wheel designs here for the 2021 model year, not including the upcoming Tremor and Raptor. But more notably, those XLT and above trim, the tire diameters have been increased to 33 inches right on the nose for a couple of big reasons. First and foremost, a little bit more sidewall definitely helps with ride quality, but Ford really wanted to eliminate excess air over the fender, basically get rid of some of the fender gap here. They thought that visually it just helped the appearance of the truck. Case in point, our XLT is equipped with chrome 20s wrapped in the Pirelli Scorpions 275/60 R20s. Now, mirrors are completely reshaped here for 21, and in our case, house two of our cameras for our optional 360 camera package. Beltline has been reshaped slightly to give it some different contouring, as has the lower rocker area, which now features this kind of chamfered line, where before it would just cut straight across. And in Ford's words, it kind of gives the truck a more powerful profile view. One big area where function meets form, and this kind of happens throughout the truck, is your door handle pockets. These things have been hollowed out a little bit more, made a little larger, because Ford wanted to make room for a thick pair of work or winter gloves. And that functionality theme certainly exists back here in the back as well. Taillights here for 2021 are completely redesigned, but actually go back to more of a 2011 through 2014 F-150 shape, in my humble opinion. We have our blind spot radar right there, pretty clean design. Tailgate itself, well, you're looking at a more pronounced rear spoiler now built into the tailgate, and that's going to help with the aerodynamics we were talking about earlier. Stamping is still present, but the lettering is a little bit bigger. But one area in particular where function really meets form, and one area where Ford really listened to their customers, was the tailgate, which is now a virtual Swiss Army knife of utility. Basically, you have 48 inches of measuring surface already laid out for you. Handy little pockets for things like hardware, pens and pencils, tablets, or your phone. Nice flat work surface here. But some of the really cool things, the built-in pockets for your C-clamps. So if you want to clamp a nice 2x4 down, make some cuts, you can do it without scratching your paint. And then finally, you have these two little guys on either side of your tailgate. That's a tie down for long bed cargo, of course. You want to tie those things down, keep them from flapping around. And maybe the most American thing about this truck, the underside of that tie down is a bottle opener. Now, if you're wondering just how you're gonna power the saw to cut your 2x4 that you just clamped down to your new tailgate, well, wonder no more, because we have Pro Power on board here. At least with this truck, we have a single 400 watt, 120 volt socket, which will allow us power pretty much anything we'd like for the most part. But if that's not enough power, well, then Ford's new F-150 Power Boost, their hybrid, which we'll cover a little bit more in a minute, actually supplies you with a single 240 volt socket, which basically allow you to power anything you want, right? From welders to home appliances and more. Of course, old favorites are back, like your tailgate step here. This has withstood the test of time from Ford, having been on the last couple generation trucks. It allows you to hop in the bed much easier, grab the handle, and so forth. But outside of tailgate additions and the power on board, not a whole lot has changed with the bed itself. You're still looking at roughly the same volume size. You still have your 5.5 foot, 6.5, and 8 foot bed options, and those bed sizes largely depend on your cab size. Regular cab, super cab, and super crew. But what do you say we hop inside and take a look at my favorite part of the 21, the new interior? But for me, the big story here for 2021 is the massive step forward in the interior of these trucks across the board, right? Take our XLT, for instance. I've been in XLTs basically all through the years, and they're really nothing fancy, right? I mean, it's one step above having vinyl floors, for crying out loud, but that's not the case here. Our XLT, thanks to the 302A high package, now kicks in things like this massive 12-inch screen, right? That's the big time upgrade here for 2021. If you're not fortunate enough to grab that, you're still getting an 8-inch screen, which is basically the high-end screen of the 15 through 20 model year trucks. So they've really stepped their game up, and they needed to, because Ram has kind of forced them to do so. Outside of that, you're getting just really nice touch points, again, for an XLT. Leather-wrapped steering wheel, heated seats, stitched door panels, some nice metallic looking kind of finishes or materials, textured dash, and this dark slate sport cloth is handsome. I mean, this is a nice truck, especially when you consider your trim level. However, if you are fortunate enough to get into a higher trim truck, take your King Ranch Platinum or Limited, the interior is gonna spoil you even more. Now, 21 does finally usher in the addition of the Sync 4 infotainment system, and so far my limited experience with this has been a positive one. It's very easy to use, not laggy whatsoever, attractive to look at. There's some little sidebar options here. We can control things like your zone lighting, your audio settings, your phone, and so on. My one small gripe here is that there's not a traditional home screen like there was on Sync 3, where you could view things like your navigation, your phone, and your radio station all in one easy to read display. Small gripe, something they could probably update down the road with their over-the-air update system. Speaking of the stereo, we have the basic 8-speaker non-B&O system in this truck, and it's kind of whatever. It's nothing really fancy. fancy. However, B&O is back for 21. They do have a mid-level system, which is like their 8-speaker upgrade. And then for the ballers out there who have deep pockets and you want to experience the full audiophile experience, well, they have the B&O Unleash system, which manages to cram 18 different speakers into the cab of this F-150, 2 of which can be found directly in the headrest. So that's pretty cool. Now, while we're on the topic of screens, we can't forget to mention our cluster appearance here. Considering we still have the base cluster, we are looking at a very beautiful digital display right in the middle of our 2 analog gauges here. And that digital display is still gonna give us some really cool animations on startup and shut off, and also when we're switching between drive modes. It's a very nice looking display. Although again, if you have the money or if you option the truck out in a higher trim package, you're getting the magnificent full digital display, something similar that Ford did with their Mustang. And it's really breathtaking. It really does increase, I think, the driver experience that much more. Outside of that though, guys, the interior, a lot of storage space here with the 21. I would say even more so than the previous generation truck. Center console's massive as always. We do have the console shift on here, so we got a little bit more storage space going on with our XLT. We have an upper dash storage now in place over the traditional glove box, door packets and so on, and even storage underneath the rear bench seat if you get the optional storage box. One thing I'm bummed we missed out on was the work surface here that is new for 2021. Has a lot of people talking where if you do have the console mounted shifter, that folds down and then you fold the actual armrest down to make one giant work surface. Ford basically says a lot of contractors, a lot of workers out there spend time in their trucks with their laptop doing work, so they really wanted to make it a comfortable working experience. Now, me personally, I think it would be a perfect spot for your dipping sauces, for chicken nuggets on road trips, but it is nice, again, that Ford is listening to their customer base and making some solid changes. But overall, guys, again, the big highlight for me here with 2021 is no doubt the interior changes for the new model year. Now, engine choices remain one of the clear-cut areas where the F-150 simply says, hold my beer. You want a basic engine for that work truck? The 3.3 V6. How about a baby EcoBoost that produces grown man torque? We got the 2.7 liter for you. The EcoBoost that started it all sticking around, the 3.5 liter. How about the tried and true American V8? Well, for that, you got the Coyote 5 liter. You want a diesel but don't really need to tow a house? Well, we got the 3 liter, and last but not least, we have the new for 21 3.5 liter EcoBoost hybrid known as the Power Boost, which is going to be for owners out there who want Honda Civic-like economy numbers but still need to tow said house. It really is amazing just how many engine choices the F-150 does pack, and now with the upcoming Raptor and fully electric F-150 on the horizon, your selection is only going to get bigger. Again, we do have the tried and true 5 liter V8 in our XLT, which by the way is celebrating a decade of service here for the 21 model year. Now, most of the engines we just talked about remain relatively unchanged for 2021. However, the 5 liter here does receive 5 more horsepower and 10 more pound-feet of torque, but that's not the big story. The big story here is that this engine, for the first time ever, now receives cylinder deactivation, to the chagrin of F-150 enthusiasts out there. Now, obviously, Ford's not the first to use this technology on a truck. GM has done it for some time. They have issues on their own, such as oil consumption, and I think that's what F-150 owners are most concerned about here, so time will tell if they suffer from the same issues. But one thing is for certain, with tighter CAFE standards right around the corner, cylinder deactivation is unfortunately here to stay. Two big things jumped out at me about the new 5 liter F-150. First and foremost, Ford made the switch to a belt-driven oil pump. Kind of a head scratcher there, and kind of interesting to see how that will hold up to aftermarket modifications when people really start pushing the limits of this motor. Secondly, aftermarket tuners out there now have to deal with RSA encryption for the PCM along with OTA, or over-the-air updates, two things that really give tuners fits. Guys out there looking to tune this truck, well listen, you're gonna be in for a little bit of an experience. It's gonna take a little while before people can actually crack the code, but in the meantime, factory-backed programs like Ford Performance and Roush will no doubt be the first to offer aftermarket support for the 2021 F-150s. But listen, as is tradition here at AmericanTrucks.com, we wanna see what this new truck is all about with power to the tires. So what do you say we strap this thing down to our in-house dyno jet and make some noise? All right, guys, so we just finished up a couple dyno pulls here with the 21 5-liter truck. Now, as advertised at the crank, the truck is supposed to make 400 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque, again at the crank. With drivetrain loss, we're talking through transmission, spinning those big 20s in the back. Obviously, it's about a 15% drivetrain loss. Now, factoring even more into that is the fact that we can't pull this truck in 7th gear, which is the 1-to-1 ratio, because it slams into the speed limiter pretty earlier on. So we couldn't even do one in 6th. We tried one in 5th, and the truck made 339 horsepower and 352 pound-feet of torque. Now, for reference, we do have a 2018 5-liter truck also pulled up in 5th gear, and the 21 made about 2 more horsepower and about 10 to 11 more pound-feet of torque at the rear wheel. So kind of what we'd anticipate here, and had we been able to spin the truck all the way up to redline in 5th gear, I have no doubt in my mind the truck would have made even more horsepower. So again, not monumental discoveries here by any stretch of the imagination. However, we did discover that it's pretty much as advertised, right? It's making about 5 more horsepower and at least 10 more pound-feet of torque than the previous generation. What do you say we get this thing unstrapped? Because we do want to talk about the new braking system for the 21 model year and just how the truck feels on the road. All right, guys, so we're off for a nice little drive here in our 21 XLT. Keep in mind, I drive a 2017 F-150 every day, a Raptor, granted, but I will say that the driving position here at the 21 feels great. It's super comfortable. I feel like they did something different with the bolstering here in the seats, or the padding at least, because they feel very comfortable. The steering wheel feels great as well, but for a more base-minded package, the stitched leather wheel feels awesome. Outside of the driving position and the comfort, the screen is just a huge upgrade, just so much more easy to read. And the fact that Ford kept the touch points and the buttons there, as opposed to eliminating all buttons and knobs like some other manufacturers, is huge. The ride's incredibly quiet, but this is great. I mean, cabin noise is to a minimum. There's no clunks, there's no weird rattles. Also the greenhouse, that great visibility, front, rear, center, sides, just the visibility is huge. One of my biggest gripes with the previous truck is gone finally. It's the addition of an electronic brake booster taking the place of like an old school vacuum style brake booster. But I always thought that the brakes on the F-150 2015 and up were just a little soft, a little squishy. That's not the case here. One thing that is interesting, the lane departure system. It's a nice feature, especially on an XLT. Again, I keep coming back to that. These are features that were previously never imagined on something like an XLT, right? I had a 2015 Lariat, which I loved prior to my Raptor, but again, I have halogen headlights, nowhere near adaptive cruise control, lane keeping, any of that stuff, let alone that screen. It's just amazing how far Ford has come with opening up different trim levels to previously unheard of options. And I think that's really important here with this truck. It might be like kind of a base trim by name, but it's something that the previous Lariats were nowhere close to. Let's just give this thing a solid thrashing real quick and see how she does. It's healthy, right? I mean, we know the 5 liters healthy, especially when paired with the 10-speed. Now it's a little bit more healthy this year as we saw those dyno numbers, but it feels great. Obviously sounds great. It's making all the right noises. Something my EcoBoost certainly will never do. The feeling that you get behind the wheel, the steering's a little bit more direct, the braking's a lot better now. Overall, it's just a much more improved experience from start to finish, and that, along with just how nice the interior is now, really makes for a great time behind the wheel. At the end of the day, the best word to describe the 21 F-150 is safe, right? Ford didn't exactly reinvent the wheel here with this truck, nor should they have. It's the most popular truck in the land, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Instead, what they did do is listen to their customers, made things more functional, and drastically improved the creature comforts of the truck itself. One thing we do have to address though is price, right? Nicely optioned out XLT is now $53,000. 5 years ago, that would give you a nicely optioned out Lariat. Nowadays, you can option out a Limited to be above $80,000. Again, things are just getting out of hand. However, will that stop people from buying the most popular truck in the land? Absolutely not. Hey guys, I'm Justin. Thanks for watching our review. We hope you enjoyed it. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you'd like to see more content like this. And in the meantime, for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.